Las Vegas Grand Prix review time. And wow, we were treated to something fairly exciting this morning, yesterday, tomorrow, this evening. I'm still not quite sure when the race was. Max Verstappen taking another win, but it was a close run thing versus his teammate Sergio Perez, who ended up finishing third, and Charles Leclerc, who managed to beat him on the final lap into P2. Sam, I guess it's what everyone says, isn't it? What Verstappen's in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Look, we are a family-friendly show. If you would like me to vomit onto the microphone with that atrocious line that you've reciprocated again, then I will. You're going to force me to do it. I didn't even
realise I did it. Oh, that's so natural.
It's just such a natural
You definitely
one.
didn't write that down months in advance. It didn't flow out of you. Did I let that one slip? What Verstappen's on the podcast stays on the podcast, I guess. Yeah, that was horrible. And there were some real moments like that, which we'll get into later on today. But what a spectacle we've seen over the weekend. You know, Big Dong singing the national anthem. You know, Kylie up there. We're having a great old time, aren't we? They really wedged in everything they could. Star Spangled Bangers were a galore. Surprised we weren't there, quite frankly. But yeah, had a lovely time. Harry, did you enjoy it? I know you're keen on this level of spectacle.
There was certainly an event today. That's all I'll say. There's not much else I can say. I tell you what, I know we'll get into the moment of the race, but I've got to get it in there now. Big Shaq, Hall of
Lewis
Famer,
Hamilton.
just can only say 3 words. Lewis Hamilton, baby. That's it.
That's his favourite words.
Oh, I knew from then on in we were in for one hell of a day, or morning, or evening, wherever we were. I don't know.
It's been a year,
yeah,
folks.
It's been a whole year. 13 years.
Who knows? Right, what on earth are we going to talk about today? Moment of the race, as Harry's teed up nicely, will come on later on in the episode. We're also going to be looking at Alpine, and apparently they can do straight lines now. That's interesting. Mercedes, tough day for them, as they couldn't crack the top 6. Aston Martin closing up to McLaren after today's result, but we'll start out front naturally. Max Verstappen took the race win ahead of Leclerc and Perez. Of course, Leclerc was on pole. Verstappen very fairly got the lead into the first corner. We'll discuss that in a little bit. And there was interchanging of the lead later on in the Grand Prix as well, to the point where eventually it panned out that Verstappen took the race win. But as mentioned, not without a good fight. So Sam, to start with, we had a mid-race safety car that Verstappen took advantage of, and indeed Perez did as well. Leclerc had only come into the pits a couple of laps beforehand, so didn't take advantage of that. The 2-stop of Verstappen beat the 1-stop of Leclerc. Do you think Verstappen takes that win without that safety car?
I mean, it definitely adds to the challenge without the safety car being there. Of course, the safety car pit time is minimizing your normal pit time. A normal pit time at Las Vegas is around a 20-second time period loss. Under a safety car, it'll be between 9 and 11. So you're kind of expecting, which is 10, by the way, everyone. That's 10, between 9 and 11. There you go. So typically, you would expect it to be made easier when performed under safety car, but it wasn't all plain sailing for Max Verstappen. He got caught up behind a few cars. He had to make some overtakes. We saw the incident, of course, with George Russell. That happened at a blind corner, according to George Russell. There was a number of events throughout the Grand Prix that didn't make things super simple for Georgie Russ, because obviously he had to serve that 5-second penalty beforehand as well. But I do think that if we didn't have a safety car, the fight for the lead probably would have gone right down to the wire. Whereas with the safety car, it was kind of resolved, 8 to 10 laps before the race had finished. So, yeah, he benefited. But at the end of the day, it was still a very fun race. And we got racing out front. We got overtaking on track, and it happened multiple times. And it was exciting to watch. So I don't mind the Max Verstappen one, but I do enjoy the fact that we had a proper battle for it. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. Yes, it was made easier, but I am okay with the fact that it happened.
Do you think it would have happened, Harry?
Do I think it would have happened?
Yeah, let's just say that second safety car that Verstappen took advantage of, that doesn't come out. Does the 1-stop of Leclerc hold on? How do you think that might have unfolded?
I think he holds on a bit longer. Do you know, the battle for the lead, I feel like, was only made by Max Verstappen doing some other things. Like, the Turn 1 incident, which we'll get on to. But yeah, Leclerc, I think he probably... he might have extended... I don't know whether he would have held on, but it would have extended that battle further into the race. And maybe it would have been like Perez and Leclerc's battle, but for the lead at the end, I don't know. But yeah, were you watching the cool down car, by the way?
Oh, of course. I couldn't miss it for the world. Couldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah. Again, another thing. Why did they drive them all the way to the hotel to interview them and then drive them back?
It's a very small choice of car.
I don't know.
Who knows? Why would you squeeze them? I love that the engineer was sat in the middle seat waiting to go.
Yeah, this is Army. Come on, let's go.
Let's go! Woo!
Anyway,
this is in your seat, mate.
Very sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. But in the cool down car was my point. Was did you see Leclerc the moment of realization when he was like, "You guys stopped again? You both stopped? Oh no.
Okay." It's like our tires were 5 laps smoother than yours. So he was like, who?
Yeah,
I'll explain it.
So I think a little bit of luck there for Verstappen, but again, like his pace today was blistering. I think that's the word Martin Brundle used. It was ridiculous. And despite the fact he had probably one of his messiest, if not his messiest race of the season, he still wins. So that's just 2023 summed up.
There you have it. I would have been intrigued to see how the race would have panned out without that safety car. I was trying to decide internally whether it was better or worse, the race, because of the safety car, because I do think we got an epic battle anyway for the lead, but I think we probably would have had it without the safety car anyway, because Leclerc stayed out a long time on those medium tyres, and I think he made those medium tyres work to an extent that I'm not sure anyone else did. And certainly the hard tyres, Verstappen, we know, needed to stop again at some point. He wasn't going to go the rest of the race, given how early he came into the pits. So he would have taken advantage at some point. But yeah, I think Leclerc was on for a 1 stop, and Verstappen would have been a slower 2 stop. The question is how much slower. I think Leclerc wins that race without the safety car. I think he holds on. It would have been tough to tell. Certainly, it's a lot of projection at that point. But yeah, I think Leclerc did such a good job on that first stint, to the point where, yeah, Verstappen's having to take that full pit stop. And it's not like Verstappen won by a huge amount. I know he did obviously pull back a little bit on the last lap in order to try and help Sergio Perez, but it's not as if he was 10 seconds up the road when he did that. It was only a few seconds. And for the majority of the second stint, even after Verstappen got by, Leclerc and Perez were able to stick with him. It's not as if he rushed off into the distance. We mentioned the optimism yesterday of Leclerc going into today, and obviously it didn't pan out for him. This is the 4th time in the last 10 races that Verstappen has converted a Leclerc pole into a win, which is a pretty horrible stat.
It's also the 11th in total, I read. He's done it 11 times.
Still, even with the result, I think we did have reason to be optimistic, even after seeing the result today. It wasn't the case of Verstappen rushing off into the distance. This was a case of, I think Leclerc got unlucky with the safety car. Now, Verstappen still has to take advantage of it, and he did a very good job with it, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if he wins it without that safety car.
I think the 5-second time penalty played a big factor as well. I think, if there was no penalty given to Verstappen, if he got in front cleanly in turn 1 without running Leclerc off the track, then I do think that actually it might have been a bigger victory for Verstappen, because he really been able to romp away. Although we saw those tyres come back in, didn't we? Leclerc managed to close that gap down and get the move back for the lead, which is great to see. It's possibly a hypothetical Grand Prix you could paint out with some of the changes that we saw. But you're right, Leclerc was fantastic on the tyres, and that was displaying in that first stint, the way he roped Verstappen back in. I was surprised that Sergio Perez, who also, I think, took massive advantage of the safety car, was able to challenge so well at the front as well. He was also not getting completely dropped by Max Verstappen. I know I'm going to ignore the drop back that Verstappen gave on that last lap, but the gap was, I think, 4.5, something like that, before that drop back happened. So not extreme, no major difference. So close enough for a competition to happen. I think you're right. If no safety car happens, Verstappen, gains 10 seconds under that safety car time? There's about a 5-second deficit between those two things there. So realistically, Leclerc wins it by 3 or 4 seconds, maybe.
I don't know. It's it's difficult to tell, because obviously Verstappen, I think, probably needed to come in because of the safety car a few laps earlier than he ideally would have done. I think he probably went 10 laps or so on that first set of hards, maybe something around that point. Whereas I think if he had full control over it, he probably would have stayed out for another 5 or 7 laps probably. But yeah, it's an intriguing one. In terms of that penalty that you referenced, Sam, do you think it was a fair one for the first quarter?
Yeah, I do think it was a fair one. We've got very set rules now on what an overtake on track means. And I mean, both cars left the track, let alone, Charles Leclerc being run off. They extended all the way down the strip by the looks of it with how far off turn one they kept going. Yeah, I think a lot of people were weirdly defensive of Max Verstappen there, being like, oh, it's the track surface. And I kind of think, what a weird excuse to make. Both drivers are running on the track surface. Both drivers have got to get through that corner cleanly. Leclerc was ahead when they hit the first apex. He's entitled to stay on the track. And if you look at the replays enough, you'll see that there really isn't any room between the two cars. Verstappen was running all the way off the edge of the road. I think the penalty was fair. I was really shocked, actually, at Red Bull coming over the radio repeatedly going, don't give that back, Max. This is completely within the rules. You're not only ahead, but the move was good. You just keep going, mate. Boom, 5-second penalty. I'm not sure what they were watching, quite frankly, but it was not a clean overtake. It was not a great turn one move, and I think the penalty was deserving. I think a lot of people on the other side were frustrated at how small a penalty was being given for this situation, and I think it only looks small because it's Max Verstappen and a Red Bull that could turn that over so quickly. I think for a lot of other cars, George Russell, for example, who picked one up for the instant, which we'll discuss later on, he got dropped from 4th all the way down to 8th place, so it can have an impact. Yeah, but fully deserved. I think he worked it off. He still won the race, but it wasn't a very good move into turn one. He had loads of time. Didn't need to rush it.
Do you think the penalty was fair, Harry?
Yeah, it was entirely fair. And I would reiterate, entirely fair penalty here. It was on Verstappen, but I have some sympathy because you saw the amount of cars that didn't make turn one. I don't think his full intention was to run Leclerc that far off the track, but he still did it. So it's a fair cop. I'm with you, Sam. Just tell him to give it back. Like under the safety car, that would have been a perfect opportunity. Just give it back and then go again. I know it didn't matter in the end, but I did not understand that. I did not understand that call from Red Bull. But entirely fair. I see what people are saying about that. It's it's not enough, but I think it was. It obviously just didn't seem like it, and it did. It did still hurt his race because when he came out from that pit stop, he was like down in 9th, and Verstappen had to fight his way back through. So yes, the overall result it didn't cost him in the end, but it still cost him during the race, which I think is. For the crime, it was a fitting penalty. And
as we've already discussed, if the safety car doesn't come out, he's an extra 5 seconds back on actual track time he's got to make up, and it would have been an even bigger impact. So arguably, he was saved way more by the safety car than maybe what people think.
I get the call from Red Bull, even if I don't think it was right. I get what they were doing because at the majority of Grand Prix, I think it would have been the better option to shoot off into the distance and claim the 5 seconds and keep the lead anyway, because Verstappen's had such an advantage over the rest of the field that in most instances he can build that gap to the point where it doesn't matter at all, and that's a safer option than dropping behind Leclerc and potentially someone else if he slows up too much and then having to get the overtake done again. I think the reason it wasn't the right decision here was because there were so many unknowns with Las Vegas and knowing exactly what the Red Bull pace was versus Ferrari. So I agree with you, but I understand at least where Red Bull were coming from. On the penalty, yeah, it was a slam dunk. You can't drive another car off the road. It's simple as that, really, isn't it?
It's the rules.
Them's the rules. So yeah, part of this is on the FIA for just not being authoritative enough in terms of their decision making. I don't understand how it took them so long to decide that this was a penalty for Verstappen. In other instances, you're just told give the place back immediately, and then in other instances it takes 6 laps. And it's not like it was just 6 laps. It was 6 laps where most of it was under VSC or safety car. So they had a lot of time to make that decision. I don't know why they couldn't have just done that straight away. There was something later in the race. I don't even remember what it was. It was Verstappen again. It was for the unsafe release, right? They'd barely decided that penalty or lack of penalty by the time David Croft had finished his sentence. Why on earth couldn't they do the same thing here? So I wish it would have been as simple as the FIA saying, give the position back and telling them directly to do that rather than the 5-second penalty. But yeah, in terms of a penalty, 100% justified. Now, we saw the battle out front was very firmly 2 Red Bulls versus 1 Ferrari. Now, it might well have been 2 Ferraris if Carlos Sainz hadn't picked up that penalty. We discussed the merit of that penalty on yesterday's qualifying review. Do you think that race ends any differently, Sam, if Sainz is in that fight and Leclerc, I guess, wasn't ganged up on by another team?
Sorry, folks, if you heard that. That was just producer Kirsty rejoining the Google Meets.
The ultra-professional producer Kirsty there.
She moaned at Harry earlier as well for not turning his Discog off and making noise during the recording.
Yeah, Kirsty.
Noise maker.
Right. Do I think that changes the face of the race? I think it wouldn't necessarily change the end result that we saw. I think Max Verstappen still has every possibility of winning the Grand Prix, but it would 100% ramp up the challenge. It could definitely change what goes on during the race. How many times did we see kind of in 2019, 2020, 2018, where Max Verstappen was trying desperately to battle 2 Mercedes at once? And strategically, they were able to just outclass Red Bull because they could do one on a long strat, one on a short strat, or they could sit one right in front of him and defend while the other one runs away. You have so much more versatility and so many more options at your disposal when you've got 2 cars versus 1. And that's exactly what would have happened with Sergio Perez out again, of course, in Q2. Carlos Sainz was fantastic, and he deserved to start on that front row, and that penalty was already discussed. It's a bit of a joke. And I think across the whole Grand Prix, 2v1, yeah, if Sainz can maybe stay in front of Verstappen going into turn 1, Leclerc can get off down the road, it definitely makes it harder. Again, like I said, I'm not sure it changes the end result, but it gives Ferrari more of a chance. And I think Leclerc probably increases his percentage chance of winning should Carlos Sainz be starting alongside him in turn 1. It's a shame we didn't get to see that battle. I do think it will make for a very fun Grand Prix.
Does a 2-on-2 battle change things, Harry?
Yeah, I think as Sam says, it undoubtedly it makes it more difficult for Red Bull today. And yeah, I know Sainz never really recovered, but it was a pretty chaotic race for him. I think he would have been well in the fight had he started where he actually qualified. So yeah, that's Ferrari going to, well, it's not on Ferrari, is it, this one? But Ferrari will be seeing that as a missed opportunity to not have Sainz in that fight because, yeah, it would. Leclerc was fighting 2 Red Bulls all by himself, which is difficult to do. And I'm not saying whether it would have changed the race result entirely, but yeah, it would have made it a much more difficult task for Verstappen to get through. He's got to get through another car with that penalty, etc. If they played out the same, you don't know. So. Yeah, it's a shame for Ferrari on that one because, yeah, apart from Singapore's, it's probably their most competitive showing all season, but they only really had 1 car in the mix.
A point I want to make on this, Ben, I'm sure you'll get onto a really good point in a minute, is it was 1 versus 1, remember, at the start of that Grand Prix. Checo had not qualified into Q3, of course, and the problem here was Carlos Sainz was at fault for not being at the front when it comes to the safety car restart because he drove into the side of Lewis Hamilton on turn 1 and spun himself round and was at the back. So unlike Sergio Perez, who also wasn't the cleanest man through turn 1, managed to somehow escape any real major danger, Carlos Sainz, I think, was also more at fault for not being at the front, whereas Sergio Perez did get himself to the front and took advantage of what was going on. So as much as it was frustrating for Ferrari to not have a 2-on-1 situation at the start of the Grand Prix, which they earned and they deserved, I think it was Carlos Sainz's fault for not being at the front come the end of the Grand Prix. I think that car was capable of being there.
I think credit to Sergio Perez for getting in that mix because we've seen so many times this year that Red Bull haven't had 2 drivers at the front, but also, at least in terms of the race win, they haven't needed it. Verstappen's been so good, so quick that he hasn't needed someone else in that fight to see off Leclerc or one of the Mercedes. Here, arguably, they did need it. This was far closer than we've seen at other Grand Prix so far this year, and it's almost like the one time Verstappen needed that other driver in the fight, he got it. So fair play to Perez on that front. We're going to take our first short break. We'll be discussing Aston Martin and McLaren a little bit more on the other side. Okay, so a few races ago, we thought this Aston Martin McLaren battle might be all done and dusted, but a little bit of a revival from Aston Martin late in the season, and also thanks to McLaren having a few difficult results, particularly today with Lando Norris retiring and Oscar Piastri only just getting into the points in 10th, albeit with the fastest lap for 2 points. Aston Martin, though, Lance Stroll finishing in 5th and Fernando Alonso finishing 9th, both of whom took advantage of the early safety car, or at least Lance Stroll did. Fernando Alonso was more, he had to. But Sam, what did you make of both of their drivers and the way they fought back in this Grand Prix?
I think it's a bit of a tale of two sides of the carriage here. Alonso out-qualifies Lance Stroll, and Lance Stroll picks up that penalty as well that he had to serve. And I thought that Lance Stroll was fantastic around Las Vegas. I mean, yes, he managed to take advantage of a safety car, but then again, that situation and that opportunity can be applied to every driver if you get your strategy right. And I don't think luck in terms of safety cars is just randomly thrown out. I do think that a lot of times if you're towards the back of the grid, maybe you plan for it. For example, Lewis Hamilton starting on the hard tyre or at a track which has got almost no temperature in it, and it's a track we've never raced at before, and you think, well, I'll start on the hard tyre. There definitely won't be a safety car in the first 10 laps. That feels like a poor choice of strategy to me, whereas Lance Stroll managed to take advantage of it and work it perfectly. Kirsty's gone again, folks, so when you do hear the Google bong, she's come back. Fernando Alonso qualifies P9, ends up finishing in P9. I don't think this was a fantastic Grand Prix for Fernando Alonso. And actually, I think he got a little bit lucky to end up finishing inside the points. I think actually it was kind of not a perfect day for him. He decided to turn himself into the roulette wheel going into turn 1. Guy was absolutely on a spinning top and somehow managed to come out in points. So well done him, I guess. McLaren, not a good day for McLaren. I mean, it seemed like they got a great start. They managed to avoid all the carnage and elevate themselves up from, the back end of the grid into 11th and 12th or something like that, I think it was. Lando Norris then, of course, spinning all on his own into the wall. The only car to do that, which is very strange, a very bizarre looking crash. Obviously been taken to hospital for precautionary measures. So as a Poddy C, we obviously wish him the best. I'm sure everything's okay, but fingers crossed. And Piastri, who decided he just never, ever wanted to stop onto a different compound of tyres until about 3 laps from the end, which is a great strategy from McLaren. Really works out well. Despite the multiple opportunities where you could have had a discounted pit stop, you thought, we just won't. We'll just keep on the hard tyre. That's the wrong strategy call. And they pick up, a point from the finish and a point from the fastest lap. So they were lucky to get 2 out of that situation, really. Aston Martin going back to the old spec. It's a great recovery. It's a great turnaround. Them and McLaren, and now the battle for second place between Ferrari and Mercedes is looking incredibly hot for the end of the season. It's going to be an exciting one.
Indeed. What did you make, Harry, of Aston Martin firstly? Lance Stroll, P5, Alonso, P9.
Yeah, I mean, as Sam said, Lance Stroll was excellent out there today, I think. Yes, you could say he got a bit lucky. He avoided the carnage at the start, but yes, he did that himself. But I think his pace was good. No, pretty good out there. So that's a big result for him. Obviously, Alonso, I think Alonso would have been up there, but as you say, Sammy decided to become a spinning top at turn 1. Got the mother of all launches. Overtook like 3 cars and then was like, nah, I'm done for the day.
A break.
a question on that, and indeed Carlos Sainz at turn 1 and anyone else I've forgotten. How did everyone just avoid a penalty? Like even investigation for it?
Nah, it's all good, mate.
Apparently, you're only if you're at the front do you get looked at properly. In the midfield, it's just free for all until you get to turn 4.
Valtteri Bottas is there. He's been smashed by Alonso in the front. Perez has gone into the back of him, and he's just shrugged his shoulders. Okay, no penalties then. Fine.
Didn't complain, did he? Didn't get on the radio moment
no,
about
and has like the most woeful race from then on in. Like is at the back for the remainder of the race, despite qualifying top 10.
P8? He was so good. He deserved something from this.
It's just that they didn't even look at it on either front.
I really enjoyed as well Valtteri, obviously, as you said, get punted from behind by Perez. Then he's got, a wild Fernando Alonso facing him, hits him, and then just goes, just hit him again. Just give him another little whack.
Have another one.
Have another one, Fernando. My race is done.
And then they're just both stopped, and Bottas, I'm not reversing.
I'm not reversing, you reverse.
Alonso, fine, go on then. We're getting Cornish countryside road.
Yeah. No, I'm not going back. Yeah. You go back. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Alonso. Yeah, not his finest hour. But yeah, this is given that McLaren scored 1 point out of this one with Piastri. 2 points.
Piastri got the fastest lap.
Oh right, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's another chunk of points that they've taken out of what was a 20-point lead, I think, coming into this one.
Yeah, I think it's 10 now.
Now down to 10. So
yeah, after this race,
all to play for as they head into Abu Dhabi, and yeah, as what we thought was a battle that was done, it isn't. Well, it isn't. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting Abu Dhabi. You'd say it would be difficult to imagine the McLaren will have a worse weekend than they did here. But you never know. So Aston Martin certainly will be buoyed by that going into next weekend. And yeah, like I said, pace-wise, it was quite encouraging for them to be a bit more in the mix again. I know it's not quite where they were, but they're certainly in that conversation more so than they were, I don't know, 3 races ago.
Yeah, I think Lance Stroll, first and foremost, that's back-to-back good races, which is something that he's struggled to do generally, is string together results. So fair play to him for what he was able to do. You've referenced the safety car and how he might have got fortunate there. But yeah, you're right. The pace was pretty good. The only very minor, it's not even a complaint, but I think he had generally pretty good pace and he was catching up to Ocon quite considerably. And then he kind of just hit a wall at like a second and a half and he just couldn't get any closer than that. So I don't know if tyre management wise, he might have just been able to get him with playing it a little bit smarter, but I think that's being quite picky and he still managed to get 5th place. And yeah, Fernando Alonso, obviously clumsy at the first corner. He wasn't the only one, but it was clumsy. And yeah, I think he came back relatively well, but he was kind of there on it because of his own error to begin with. So I think he'll be disappointed in that as soon as he realizes McLaren scored exactly 2 points. I think this was more of an opportunity to claim points than what Aston Martin have. I think that there was a chance here that they could be almost level going into Abu Dhabi. Instead, it's still doable at 10 points, definitely doable, but it could have been a little bit better. From McLaren's perspective, Sam, you've already mentioned Oscar Piastri's strategy. We saw the hard tyre was much better than any other tyre out there today. Do you think that's what McLaren were playing to? Just stay on the hard tyre as long as we possibly can and then just pit for the mediums almost at the last possible moment?
Well, yeah, clearly they listened to the preview show, or the qualifying show rather, where I said that Yuki Tsunoda should be goal hanging for a safety car at the end of the race. We'll get on to all those predictions later on, folks. Save your laughs for me later, thank you. And Oscar Piastri was clearly going, that's a great strategy. Sam Sage knows all about predictions. He's called it. I'm going to get this right. It did not happen. Narrator, he did not get it right. So that's what they were trying for, which I understand and I respect it. But I think the car actually in race conditions was good enough to score good points today. I think they had relatively decent pace. They were following well. And when Piastri was on those hard tyres, he was making them work so well, especially off those restarts. We saw him pick up multiple places on both goes. I just don't know why he didn't essentially follow the strategy of Verstappen when they kind of cut their losses on that first stop and went, right, get off, let's make a go now, and then get back on them again with a short stop. I know they can't predict the future, but you've got to change over. And how long do you wait before you do the first changeover? It just felt like they threw away what could have been quite a good opportunity for them. I don't think they would have maybe beaten Lance Stroll. Never thought I'd say that. But I do think that they probably could have picked up, especially with a 6th or a 7th, I think was definitely viable, definitely an option. They could have walked away with at least 5 or 6 more points than they actually got at the end of this race, I think. Bit of a missed opportunity for them. And I think the 10, 11 points that they've got Aston Martin now is a buffer. And I think they're lucky it's 10 or 11 points because I think they could have lost that 4th place next race. And I think actually they'll probably just get away with it due to Abu Dhabi. Again, I don't know anything, but it probably doesn't suit the Aston Martin. But who knows? They'll probably win now.
Probably.
It's a desert race, as we discussed. McLaren can't do them, so.
Yeah.
Right. Remember that knowledge, folks. I will predict both McLarens out in the first 10 laps.
Based on what Sam's just said there, Harry, do you think that McLaren were actually a victim of Piastri starting on the hard tyre? Because as we've sort of referenced, those that started on the medium tyre were able to take that option to pit and then go to the end. But Piastri had to use the medium tyre at some point. So do you think they were a victim of the start tyre almost?
Yeah, I think they were, because, like you say, there wasn't the right opportunity. I'm trying to think. When did he stop for a second time? Was it under the second safety car? He stayed out, right? And that's how he was so high up.
Stayed out for the first one. Stayed out for the second? On the second one.
Anyway, sorry, Ben. Yeah. My point was, I don't think there was necessarily the right opportunity for them to, when those safety cars were happening, to bolt on the mediums, because I'm not sure it would have been too long for them. But yeah, so yeah, I think they were slightly boxed into a corner by that. But given where we were, they maybe should have planned for that a bit. It was a risk, and obviously the Piastri was starting out position, so they had to try something different. But yeah, they like say Sam, I think they probably could have come away with a few. Given the pace that Piastri had, they will probably feel a bit disappointed to have only come away with 2 points after the race, at least, not from qualifying. I guess they would take 2 points, but yeah, his pace was again very good out there today. So that's they're going to be scratching their heads on that one.
He was on the same strategy as Lewis Hamilton, who, if he didn't pick up the ridiculous damage, he, ironically with Piastri, they should have finished together higher than what they did. The strategy was able to work for one car, it should have been able to work for the other.
How did the tiniest amount of contact, by the way, end up with 2 punctures?
They self-destructed.
Sure.
They
Okay.
literally kissed and the world blew up.
Those two they're not allowed to be side by side. It was Monza all over again.
Fair play as well. I know it wasn't like a fast stop just on the clock itself, but Piastri got that puncture, came into the pits almost immediately, and McLaren still turned him around in, 4.5 seconds, which
Lightning.
I think is pretty impressive given how little warning they had to do. That was basically the same time for Leclerc, who that was a planned pit stop. So, oh no, yeah.
Ow.
Oh, God.
That's so Ferrari.
Bashing your elbow.
It's such a weird circumstance for Oscar Piastri, because did he start 17th, was it, on the grid?
So, yeah.
He went from 17th to 10th and scored 2 points, which I think in any other race you'd go, great stuff, what a recovery. And then you look at actually what happened out there today, and there were like 4 drivers ahead of him that arguably recovered more. It's an odd one, but at least where Norris was out, he was able to claim something. I agree. I think that McLaren had good pace here, and to walk away with 2 points is a massive disappointment. Should we go for driver of the day?
Yeah, let's do
The
it.
verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
Sam, driver of the day.
It's plain and simple for me. It's Esteban Ocon. The guy got the bacon on the grill, and we threw the sausages in the bin. Honestly, it's like Pierre Gasly's battery just died, and Esteban Ocon went, "Cheers, pal. I'll have the barbecue now." It was great. It was really, really good. Fair play to him. Made every right call. He took advantage of every mistake. He made the tyres work. Apparently, Alpine can go in a straight line on this Sunday only as a one-off exclusive. So don't miss it, folks. You already did, or you didn't. Who knows when the race goes live? But he was brilliant, and the gap in there between the two of them now is only 4 points. So, boy, you've been making me nervous. Come on, Alpine, no point scorers next week, please.
Yeah, they can't do it 2 weeks in a row. That'd be ridiculous. I think you're fine. Yeah, there were some good recoveries out there today. Lance Stroll, as we've already mentioned. Ocon was another mention from me. Yeah, good work, Esther. He's given me confidence that actually Le Plan starts in 2024. It's fine, folks. I was just early to the party. It's all good. But I'm not going to give it to either of those, because ultimately they were out of position because of their own fault. So, I'm not going to give it to either of those two drivers. I'll give it to Charles Leclerc, because I know he technically went down 1 position from where he started, but I do think he gave it absolutely everything, despite not really anything going his way. He just stuck in there. And the move on Sergio Perez on the last lap was mightily impressive. And Sergio Perez just needs things. I tell you what, just needs whoever it was who waved the flag at the Canadian Grand Prix a few years ago, just to make sure all races end like a lap earlier than they should.
Winnie Harlow?
That's it.
Winnie Harlow, yeah. Driver of the day, Harry?
I'm entirely in agreement with you, Ben. I'm going for Charles Leclerc. He didn't do anything wrong. Like, he did. I don't think he put a foot wrong all weekend, and he was the quickest driver. And
apart from that massive lockup,
we'll
forget about that one.
Yeah, but that point didn't matter, did it? And as you say, made a little muggins of Sergio Perez on the last lap. So, honestly, Sergio, what did you think he was going to do? Like, just defend the inside, mate.
Lewis Hamilton, did you get in the car?
Anyway, Leclerc for me, he was almost faultless.
What about worst driver of the day?
Get in the bin, worst driver of the day. Bin, worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Harry, who have you got?
I'm gonna go for. I don't know actually. Maybe Lando Norris for crashing on his own. He is out of hospital, by the way, now, folks. So we can mock him again.
He's fine.
He's
That's
fine.
not how this podcast works. As soon as you step out the doors of a hospital, you're fair game.
You are
That's not
fair
how
game.
This works.
All right, okay,
I
fine.
think it's a good policy.
It's not.
No, but Norris was the only driver out there to bin it all by himself. We saw a few lockups, as you say, and the carnage there was turn one. But yeah, I'll give it to him.
I feel like as soon as lap one happened, maybe not lap one, but the early stages of the race happened, and the grip started to improve. It wasn't a clean race, but also it could have been more chaotic. Like there could have been more carnage late in the race. So yeah, it did seem as if the early laps were the ones where you needed to navigate a bit safer. Sam, who was worst driver of the day for you?
I got to completely agree with Harry. I think it's Lando Norris. The McLaren had pace. His teammate made it kind of work. And to be fair to Piastri, obviously he was in the walls a little bit and got through his own fault. And I do think that without that collision, he probably could have gone on to be higher up the grid. This was a really uncharacteristic error from Lando Norris. And, now he is happy and healthy. I can mock him. Boy, you can go around a corner, boy. You need to not hit the wall, because that was really rubbish. And probably the worst error of the entire weekend. And I did not think it would come from Lando Norris. I mean, there were some bad drives down the grid. There were some drivers that really didn't perform. But at least they finished.
Just to say, it was a real IndyCar crash. Do you not think the way... I don't know. Like it was like an oval crash. It was an odd one.
Just like lost all downforce all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was strange. Can we potentially give worst driver of the day to the AlphaTauri? Because that was a heap of junk this weekend.
It's a rocket ship, folks.
Rocket ship, baby.
It's a rocket ship.
More on that a little bit later. I will also give it to Lando Norris. I'll give it to Lando Norris too, because he crashed and scored no points. That seems like a fairly valid reason to give worst driver of the day. Honourable mention to Alonso. I was a bit disappointed he couldn't do a bit more. But Lando Norris gets it for me. Big brain.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
Oh, it slaps.
Love it. Sam, what have you got?
Toto Wolff, come over the radio. George, we are going for P4. Get him.
Are we?
Toto, have you forgotten a certain incident that your driver may have caused that relegated you like a P8? Honestly, hilarious. They just seem to literally ignore it. It doesn't exist. If there is the 5-second penalty in the room with us, if we can't see it, it doesn't exist. It was ridiculous. I get what they were trying to do. I think trying to spur him on just to make up as much time as possible, maybe. But I would rather just be honest and say, we've got a penalty, make up as much time as possible. You just sound a bit silly.
I don't know if he would have known before that via his engineer whether he had a penalty. Like, I agree with you. I feel like it was motivation of, and then by doing that, you're going to make as many positions as possible come the end of the race. I think maybe that message in isolation didn't make much sense, but maybe the surrounding messages did. Who knows?
I think so.
Yeah, my big brain strategy has to go to Alpine on the verge of a good result for the first time since 2005, deciding that they're going to try and kill each other. Now, honestly, them going side by side through the final corner, I almost lost it. And then still going side by side through the first few corners, that in itself sent me. Then the radio message of Esteban hold position. Why?
Bit late, pal.
Why would... I'm assuming it was a bit of a delayed message, but why on earth would you tell them to? Surely it's slower, given the amount of slipstream in DRS. It is slower for someone to hold position than it is just to overtake them. I think Gasly's race and how that unfolded proved that that was a stupid idea to begin with anyway. And then, I don't know why this just capped it off. It was just the battling where they nearly killed each other, that stupid radio message, and then the Salesforce bear just dancing on the sphere straight after. I was like, this is it.
I love that sphere so much.
Right, fine. So, yeah, that was my moment or moments of the race. Harry?
I was going to go for the Alpine one, but I'll go for, because they always need a mention on this segment. Why'd you not pit Leclerc, lads, when the safety car came out?
The poor face that he pulls when he realises that both his competitors did that. It's like, oh.
Would it have mattered?
I don't know. But why would you not give him that opportunity?
Track position? I don't know. He only had a 5-lap fresher tyres and would have dropped positions if they didn't think he was necessarily quicker than the Red Bulls. Would he have got? I don't know. I was fine with it. Did
he finish in the same place that he would have finished in regardless?
I think he'd have finished P3 if he'd pitted, is my opinion.
Big brain strat is Harry's big brain strat.
Yes. I mean, mine was the Alpine one, but Ben nicked it, so I had to make something up.
It's a race of hypotheticals, wasn't it? A lot of what ifs.
A lot of what ifs. The best kind of race.
What Verstappen's in Vegas?
Stop it.
Verstays in Vegas.
Thanks, Sam. With that, let's go eat some sandwiches. We're going to take our next break. On the other side, we're going to be discussing Alpine a little bit more. Okay, Alpine. One driver did very well in qualifying, didn't do so well in the race. Apparently, Alpines can't go two at a time, so the other driver did very well in the race, and the driver that did well in qualifying didn't do very good in the race. So Esteban Ocon out in Q1 yesterday, turned that into a P4 for 12 points today. And then the P4 of Gasly in qualifying resulted in no points when he finished in 11th. Both of their strategies, interesting ones. So Gasly's tyres seem to completely fall off. So let's start with Gasly, Sam. Impressed a lot yesterday. We referenced that in our review. Just couldn't hold on where others could. What did you make of his Grand Prix?
Well, he had a serious battery failure in the last 10 laps or so.
Yes,
which I think was the major cause of him dropping places. I think he would have stayed ahead of Lance Stroll. I think he probably would have stayed ahead of, Alonso and Piastri. I think probably maybe a P6 or P7 was cut from the cars with George Russell's penalty as well. I don't think the tyres were that much worse than everyone else around him that it would have caused him to drop that fast. I do think it would be unfair to say that this was a bad result through Pierre Gasly's own doing. I think he was massively hampered by battery essentially failing on him and him having to cope with that around what is probably the most battery-intensive track that we've seen for some time. But on the flip side, Esteban Ocon did exactly what I said earlier on his driver of the day moment. He absolutely capitalized on the mistakes of others around him and the opportunities that were presented with the safety cars. And then he deployed fantastic pace. It was very silly that they tried to hold Ocon back behind Gasly, because I think Gasly was already encountering the problems that we saw really unfolding in the race at that point. So you would have just caused both of your cars to essentially be driving around with a damaged battery if you really stopped Ocon overtaking before the end of the race. It felt like a silly strategy call. But I'm glad that one of the cars managed to get really good points. It felt like they had the pace to do so. Both drivers, realistically, when the cars were functioning, the tyres were good, had phenomenal pace. They were driving fantastically well. It begs the question, what could they have done if Ocon had qualified in the right position And what could Gasly have achieved if his car had held together before the end of the race? I think Alpine possibly could have walked away with a 4-5, I think was potential on the car, so everything going 100% to plan, which is really strange because I think we all written them off completely come the midweek, because we know that Alpine weren't good in a straight line. So bit gutting for Gasly. Strategy wasn't perfect, but I think it was way more deserving of what he got. Ocon, as I've already said, a phenomenal comeback.
I don't know if you were the same as me, but as soon as like all of the carnage ensued on the first corner, and you were just sort of glued to that action, and then you just sort of take a step back. Oh wow, that was pretty frantic. Let's have a look at the timing tower. Wait, Ocon's in 8th. What?
What are we moving up?
How was he there? That doesn't make sense. What did you make of Alpine, Harry?
I mean, baffling. Utterly baffled. Where's that pace from? I mean, it will be gone again next race, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a confusing one. I think battery issue aside, and obviously Gasly was very impressive yesterday, as we said in the quality review, and Esteban was not. But I think Gasly's race management pace will be a little bit concerning to him, I imagine. Just given where Ocon started, and yes, he benefited from quite a few cars falling off at the first corner. But his race pace was just better than Gasly's throughout anyway. So that'll be a bit of a concern for old P Gasly. But yeah, it was a positive race all round for the Alpine team, which again, how? What? Why are you good around this circuit, Alpine? All the signs say you shouldn't be, but then you're up there. So that makes no sense.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
They should have been 21st and 22nd.
I'm gonna sit down later on YouTube, settling for a nice cozy Sunday because I'm gonna be tired. Maybe put something a bit weird on top 10 conspiracy theories of all time. In at 3rd, Bermuda Triangle. 2nd place will probably be Alpine's pace around Las Vegas. I imagine it probably falls short of like Area 51. No one understands it. How did it happen? Was it real? We don't know.
Who knows? So yeah, they'll obviously happily take away the big chunk of points that they got. Whether they understand why or how that even happened remains to be seen. But yeah, Ocon was obviously impressive today, as we've already mentioned. Now they just need both drivers to be good on both days of the weekend. That would be
just once.
Yeah, you can't have one good on Saturday and one good on Sunday and it not be the same driver.
It's amazing that they've managed to have 2 podiums this year. Both drivers have picked up 1 podium, and I think in both instances the other driver wasn't in the points.
It's not even close. Yeah,
how is it happening every time?
It's very odd. But yeah, good day for Alpine.
Yeah, like you say, utterly bizarre how on earth this unfolded. We assumed, as I think most did, that Alpine not having an engine in the back of their car was going to really hamper them here. But apparently they can do Las Vegas. Yeah, utterly bizarre. I think with Pierre Gasly, it is difficult to tell because we don't know exactly when those battery issues started to kick in, and we don't know exactly how much it hampered him. So, when we first got wind of it, he'd already started dropping, but it's entirely possible that he'd already reported the issue before that, and we just didn't hear about it. So I think he would have struggled anyway, because in terms of tyre wear, he was on older tyres than pretty much everyone, including his teammate around him. So I think he would have dropped certainly to his own teammate, maybe some other spots as well. I think the battery issue probably enhanced what happened. I think he would have started to drop anyway. Ocon's pace was good, and he will be frustrated. Well, I don't know if he will be frustrated, because I don't know if you could have achieved anything else with 2 Red Bulls and a Ferrari in front of him. But, he might have, if he had a better day yesterday, he might have still finished 4th. But, yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. He bemoaned his bad luck yesterday, and we spoke about that a bit. But today he proved that he is deserving of a place in F1. He's deserving of a place in that team. And now 4 points separate him and Pierre Gasly.
4 lovely sausages for us to eat for breakfast after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix when I win teammate wars.
Honestly, when FP1 happens next week and they're 17th and 19th, I'm just going to... It's going to be so depressing.
I'm going to put the teammate wars episode on the ground and I'm going to dance on it like a happy jig.
Completely fair. Let's switch gears to Mercedes. So they didn't exactly have the race that we were thinking they might. I think in the preview we said they might be the fourth fastest team. They finished 7th and 8th, which is about where the fourth fastest team would finish, but it's maybe not quite as straightforward as that, as both of them had messy races. Lewis Hamilton in particular was involved in an incident with Piastri, and then Russell picked up a 5-second penalty for forgetting a driver exists. Let's start with George Russell and that penalty. It's probably giving away what I think of it, but Harry, what do you think of it?
Yeah, George, mate, there's a car alongside you. What are you doing?
Can't drive in the car. Can't do that.
Show your blind spot, mate.
Not even the blind spot. He's literally there. Like, it's not even a dive from Max. I know Max didn't have the cleanest of races today, but I think this one was a fair move. It was on, and George was like, nah, you just get out of the way, mate. And obviously Max can't disappear. He's very good, but he is not a magician. He cannot go and like disappear into thin air. Very odd one from Russell there. And obviously that cost him a big old chunk of points because he would have been on for P5 had he not have that penalty. So yeah, but completely fair cop in the same way the Verstappen one was a fair cop. As we say, can't just drive into people.
Did you understand and agree with the penalty, Sam?
100%. Like, you know, that gap is, we saw overtakes happen through that corner. We saw two cars go through there comfortably. We saw Charles Leclerc decide to absolutely launch it through there over Sergio Perez on the last lap when it all could have been at risk and they made it happen. And yet George Russell just went, oops, have I hit you? Don't mind me. You know, just destroying carbon fiber absolutely everywhere. 100% you deserve the penalty. And it was just hilarious the way that they almost kind of, no George Russell radio message. I almost feel like that if they keep really quiet, they could, shh, we won't be noticed. And big brain strat. Got noticed, didn't you? I mean, you hit another car when he was 100% alongside you. You don't do that, mate. So it's a slam dunk and deservedly so. And they faced the punishment. I think it was a fair one.
I think the lack of George Russell radio message.
Hello, I'm George Radio.
George Radio. I mean, after this year, we probably should call him George Radio. No, but the lack of any message from him kind of suggests that he knew straight away that was a bad one. Because normally with George, you hear a complaint if he thinks he's in the right, and yeah, there was nothing. Silence.
Yeah, there's not really too much to add, is there? Shouldn't drive into someone. It's a slam dunk penalty, yeah. And he's got to be frustrated, George Russell. I know he made comments about this earlier in the weekend about how this is like one of the messiest seasons, or I can't remember the exact phrase he used. But it's true. It has been a really messy season for him where there is no reason he should have lost to his teammate today, given he started, 7 positions higher than him, 7 or 8 positions higher. And then Lewis Hamilton got involved in the first lap carnage, had a crash with Oscar Piastri, started on the hard tyres, so wasn't on the best strategy, and didn't have a 5-second, and he still beat him. That's not how a race should go. George Russell should have been a comfortable P4 here. That's how that race should have gone for him. And it was going that way for him, at least until Perez got involved. He was P3. But there was no reason why George Russell shouldn't have been walking away with a comfortable P4 here. And it's just another instance of him getting in his own way, I think is probably the right way to put it.
Yeah, Sorry, Sam. I was going to say, we mentioned this the other day. He's had the pace all year, Russell, bar a couple of races maybe. But yeah, he's just... It's been messy. Messy is the correct word.
This is a monumental fall in form from Mercedes at the moment. The gap between Ferrari and Mercedes is now 4 points in the Constructors' title. In the last 6 Grand Prix, they only had 3 races where both cars have finished. The results have been, I think Mexico was the only all right one. They got a 2nd and a 6th, I think. I mean, in Japan, 5th and 7th. Qatar, Hamilton takes out himself hitting his own teammate, and Russell finishes, I think, 4th. USA, Ham, DSQ. That only brings up Russell to 5th. He was further than that. He was 7th before that. Brazil, Ham, 8th, Russell out. And now Las Vegas, 7th and 8th. This is possibly the worst run of form that Mercedes have ever had since joining Formula One again. Maybe I'll go back maybe to 2012, 13, whatever it was when they first came in. They weren't amazing. But this is a horrid run, and they are about to throw away second place in the constructors to the team that don't understand what pit stops are meant to do for your own car. So they need to sort this out. This is really worrying. Russell is being up in the air about what's going on. Hamilton's form is all over the place, and they can't seem to get a car across the line cleanly at the moment. It is really worrying from Mercedes' point of view that they think they're going to do this thing to challenge Red Bull in 2024.
I think if Mercedes do end up dropping that position to Ferrari in the overall constructor standings, it will be because of not necessarily the last couple of races, but it will be the couple of races before that. Because I think with here and particularly Brazil, I mean, they didn't have a good result, but also it's where they deserve to finish. They weren't very quick. You referenced Qatar. I think they had a very valid case for being the 3rd fastest team there. And Russell's comeback proved that. But of course, Lewis Hamilton was out on the first corner, as you referenced. And the US, albeit with an illegal car, Lewis Hamilton was very quick there as well. I think if those two results come together, this isn't even a debate at this point, and they can afford these couple of bad results. I think those were the couple of races where if they do end up losing it, that will be where it's come from.
I agree.
That's a quick reflection on the Grand Prix itself and the Grand Prix weekend. I'm sure we'll spend a bit more time in our preview episode for Abu Dhabi next week talking about this. But just to give it a little bit of airtime now, obviously a lot of controversy. What has followed is a great race. Ups and downs, I think, is probably the easiest way to put it. Sam, how do you reflect on this race weekend as a whole?
As a whole, I actually think it's been a massive success. I think the fans are suing Formula One, which is great. Well done to them.
Sorry, massive success. Fans are suing.
The juxtaposition there.
Just on that point, and I will shout out my old man for this. Just go and look up the lawyer who is leading that class lawsuit. Just anyone listening, go and look it up because it's hilarious.
Man doesn't lose. That's all you have to say about that. So we'll put that bit to one side, and the manhole cover causing a penalty controversy that ripped apart a competitor's car. Put that to one side as well. But on the Saturday and the Saturday... I don't know. It's very confusing. When you're in the wrong time zone. The qualifying and race components of this weekend, I think, were a massive success. I think the track being really slippery and cold was very fun and a challenge, and it made for a proper, interesting race. I think they nailed the DRS length and how effective that was throughout the whole race. I think it was exactly right. We didn't see too many overtakes where they breezed past only halfway down the straight. There were some, don't get me wrong, there were some. But I think a lot of the time it was heavy into the braking zone. It was Sergio Perez taking a nap on the apex and someone was flying past him. It was, multiple times we had to see proper moves where cars were wheel to wheel through a couple of corners, and it was exciting. Strategy played an element. We didn't know whether it was going to be a 2-stop or a 1-stop. I think overall, this was a fun race. I'm not saying it was race of the season. I'm not going to say it's going to go down in history as an absolute thriller, but I enjoyed it. And some of that is to do with what the events took place within the race. But at the same time, the track had to provide that. And I think it did. And I'm not disappointed it happened. I don't think it was the absolute fiesta that F1 wanted it to be, but it certainly wasn't a failure in my eyes. And I had a good time.
Harry, we know your position coming into this race was one of pure optimism and joy and love. And of course, Jacques Villeneuve getting married would have only enhanced that. So,
can he grow up? Can he, why is he a child?
Can you grow up?
Grow up.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
Yeah, look, it was a fine race. Some people have been calling it race of the season, and I don't know whether I fell asleep and missed something because that was not race of the season in my view. But anyway, maybe
what has been?
It's a good question actually. I mean, I enjoyed Singapore a lot. I know there was actually no overtake for the lead, but I just enjoyed that. But
it hasn't got to be. The fight was so close. It hasn't got to be an overtake for the lead.
precisely,
Pretty exciting.
I don't know. I actually have to probably think, but I wouldn't put it up there. It's better than some races we've had this year, undoubtedly. But overall, I am not the massive fan of Vegas, but I think that's pretty obvious now. I think the track itself really dull. It's a lot of straights, and that doesn't I'm with you, Sam. I think they did well on the DRS zone because I thought that was a fear of mine. There were quite a few like just blasting past, but I think it could have been much worse. But just the track itself, there was a lot of hyping up, through the final corner, like, whoa, look how fast they're going through there, which yes they are, but I don't know. It did not get my juices flowing. So yeah, look, I'm obviously not a massive fan of the overall overhypedness. I still don't understand why they drove them to the Bellagio Hotel to interview him afterwards, away from all the fans that were there. What's the point? I don't understand that.
Because they can.
I know, but why? Anyway.
I agree. It's so they could set out the podium lorry, wasn't it? That's why.
Yeah, true. I gotta buy some time. Overall, I'm not a massive fan. The race was all right. I don't want to sound like, I know I do sound like a Debbie Downer about it, but I want F1 to succeed in America, and it will succeed, I'm sure. But I'm not fully convinced by this track, this race so far.
10 more years.
Oh no, Jesus.
10 more years.
God help us.
10 more years.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it will continue to improve. Baku first year wasn't amazing, and we love going to Baku, and that's kind of similar with a lot of long straights. So, don't know. I'll give it a middle of the road 6 out of 10.
Love that. I'm going to go out on a whim and say that the race weekend didn't start in the best way possible.
Ooh, risky.
But I think F1 will be happy with how it played out from there. I do have quite a lot of thoughts on the FIA and how they could be better at communication management, and a lot of thoughts on how they could not possibly be worse. But this was, I think overall they'll take it, and I think they will refine the event in years to come. This was always going to be the fanfare of the first year. Some were going to love it, some were going to hate it. I think it will eventually find itself and find its way onto the calendar in a seamless fashion. I do actually think it will generally improve from here. In terms of the track itself, it's mixed feelings, because as a pure qualifying track, I'm with you, Harry, doesn't do much for me. I felt qualifying wise, at least for a qualifying session in 2023, wasn't brilliant. I thought it was good, because all qualifying sessions are good. It can't possibly be bad. But equally, I think we've had better, because I think there are, I don't know necessarily better tracks, but just different tracks that work better for qualifying. I think the way I see it is this track is almost the anti-Suzuka, in that Suzuka is a great track that ordinarily doesn't produce very good racing, at least in F1 racing. And here in Las Vegas, I think it's a bit of a dull track, but it's kind of just set up for modern F1 in the way that it runs, and it will give you overtakes, it will give you following, it will give you continued battles where it's difficult to break DRS. I think it's almost set up for how F1 is in 2023. And I mean that in both a positive and a slightly negative way. So I think as well, this isn't a criticism against Las Vegas. It's more of a criticism against F1 generally. I think when the racing starts, and at least you sort of take away the skyline and you're just looking at the actual race itself, that Grand Prix and Jeddah and Singapore, they become so interchangeable in terms of actually the look and feel of the racetracks. When you, obviously they're at night, so you haven't got too much to look at elsewhere. They become a bit samey for me.
I lost track of where I was on the track with the camera a lot of the time. I didn't know what corner I was regularly looking at. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I had the same as well. And part of that is going to be the first time we were here, and we'll get used to how the track works in future years for sure. But yeah, I think it was a mixture of positives and negatives. I think the race itself, I agree. I wouldn't put it as race of the season, but I'd probably put it top 3. I think it was a very good race. And part of that is speaking to how 2023 hasn't been a brilliant season in terms of races, but equally there have been many, many worse than what we had out there.
Out of 10, Ben?
Oh, I'd give it a 7.5.
That's exactly what I was saying. 7.5.
All right, we'll take our final break. We got moment of the race on the other side. Before we get into moment of the race, we've got a segment that Harry is probably very much looking forward to. We're going to review some bold predictions. Let's start with the bad.
Am I here yet? Is it worth me talking yet?
So, Sam, your prediction was that Lando Norris would win the Grand Prix and that there would be at least 5 retirements. It was a double header, which you managed to get 0 out of 2 on. There were 3 retirements. One of which Lando Norris.
The first one was Lando Norris, which is honestly, when I looked up after hearing, there's been a crash. Oh, it's Lando Norris in the barrier.
I mean, luckily there weren't 5 retirements and one of them was Lando, because that would have been rubbing salt in the wound if you got one.
Until about 6 laps from the end,
I really thought it was
one retirement, and it was Lando Norris. And I thought, I am the antichrist of predictions here. I am Damien Omen for getting things right at the moment. Good Lord, am I bad at this?
So this is going to be a bit of a visual reference, but if I start up here, this was my confidence level for my bold prediction being right from the beginning of the weekend. We get to qualifying, it's still pretty high. Start of the race is looking pretty good. He's challenging for P4. My prediction was Albon on the podium. And then it just slowly went away and out of the points.
It was kind of so close.
They just didn't like race conditions, did they?
No.
You should have gone for your classic Alpine P4. God damn it. I haven't done that 4 times this season.
God actually got P4.
I predicted that, I think, 3 times this year. Not today.
Come on. The plan is stronger than I give it credit for. So obviously no point for me. But this is probably going to be the tiebreaker because myself and Harry were tied on correct bold predictions, I believe. Harry predicted that someone from outside the top 10 would get on the podium. Harry, was Sergio Perez on the podium?
He was. Thank you, Sergio.
Where did he start?
I had to double check this because with penalties, I was like, oh, wait, was he starting 10th? No, he started 11th. So, yes.
Well done.
Thank you, Sergio, for being absolutely naff at qualifying. Once again, you've made my day.
In fairness to you as well, I mean, you weren't just relying on Perez here because Ocon, Stroll, Sainz, 4th, 5th, 6th, all would have been correct as well for your bold prediction. So 4 of the top 6 were from outside the top 10.
Honestly, Harry had 18 backup answers that were all correct.
Yeah.
I could not hit a donkey in the face if it stood 2 feet away from me at the moment.
In fairness, you went very bold this time.
Hey, can't win anything, so you may as well go home happy.
But you're not.
Exactly.
I'm very unhappy.
Moment of the race. We have, of course, got our Discord submissions that we will play momentarily, but we have the 3 of us and our moment of the race to start us off. Sam, what was yours?
So we had a lot of interesting punditry lines on the UK channel.
Oh, God.
And Crofty tried time and time again to come up with some clever, witty, fun thing. But it was Martin Brundle that stole the show for me when Crofty turned around and said, Justin Bieber's going to be waving the checkered flag.
Yes.
And Brundle just turned around and said, that's made my life. It was quite early here. Really, I'm a loud laugher, you may be aware. I was trying very hard to snigger into my jumper as a very silly boy who thought that was just absolutely hilarious, the absolute disregard for someone like Justin Bieber in Martin Brundle's world. Thought it was very funny. Sorry that it isn't anything to do with racing, because thought it was funny.
Harry, your moment of the race?
Mine's not actually in the race, which I know we talked about off air, but I didn't even see this happen live. I woke up to it this morning before we settled down to watch the race. But Sergio Perez and his driver intro. But have you seen this?
No.
Oh my God!
Goodness
Go
me.
and have a look on Twitter, Sam. It was on there. Is it Bruce? What's his second name? What's the guy who's doing the intro? Anyway,
I didn't. Yeah,
he's doing the intro and he's like screaming, Sergio, Checo, Perez. And he literally does
right
it in
there.
Perez's face. And then Perez just stands there looking like the most lost
What do I
human
do?
being. Like, is he going to talk to me? Do I need to? Oh, it's so good. Oh, good Lord. And that helped me wake up for this race. It was unreal. So that's my moment of the race, despite it not actually being in the race.
My moment of the race, honourable shout out to Lewis Hamilton, reverting back to an 11-year-old boy of anyone in the UK as soon as they see something that can be kicked, just kicking it with the bollard on it. Just
By bollard.
Have it. I'll go with the moment of the races. I'll actually pick a serious one. For
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
I usually joke around on this. I will go for Leclerc versus Perez on the last lap because that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was a saucy move from Leclerc.
Love that.
Oh, I'm just watching Sergio Perez's face as Michael Buffer is literally screaming into his soul, and he's like, "Hi," and then he's like, "Haha, yeah, okay."
I don't understand. The whole thing is absolutely bizarre. He's like,
Why? Where do I go?
Why are you yelling at me? What's happening?
Yeah, great, love that. Well done, Vegas.
Oh, good Lord. Good Lord.
Well, that's what we had to offer. What do the Discord submissions have to offer?
Plenty, as ever. Thank you, everyone, for sending your stuff in. First up is Bristol Liam.
You know what? For a weekend that looked like it would be awful, what a race. And what a terrible suit for Max Verstappen. And Checo looks like he's driving for a Ferrari. But me moment of the race, it's got to be that last lap overtaking it. Cheers.
Cheers.
I mean, that was a stanger. Even if Sergio Perez did ask for a wake-up call from room service and it never came, Charles Leclerc absolutely planted it on him. It was fantastic.
Norm from Texas is next.
Yeehaw.
Oh, hello, my late-breaking friends. It is I, Norm from Texas. And much like a much-needed cup of coffee right now, I'm going to give you my moment of the race. And that was Chagas LaVegas betting it all on black and putting on one of the smoothest overtakes that we have seen this year on the last lap. Too bad it's happened to Checo twice. Anyway, McLaren, Bubby, we got to talk. Anyway. Keep breaking late.
No,
This
why
one's for you,
did you
buggers.
say that all
Yeah,
on
yeah.
red. Charles Leclerc's in a Ferrari.
That's a good point, that.
Oh, it's a swing and miss.
But,
Sorry, Norm.
Credit to Norm. It's probably a ridiculous time for him. So,
Yeah,
Is it like 3:30 in the morning?
well, the race would have started Central Time at 2 a.m., I think.
Oh,
so,
It's a great time for Americans all over.
no, sorry. I'm being stupid. It's not 2 a.m.
what is it?
It's midnight, I think.
Oh, still
It's
gross.
still painful. Still at least 2:30.
Yeah.
Next up is Caroline's number one dad.
She's got
All
more
right,
than one.
boys. Moment of the race. Late breaking Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Big Shaq. The big diesel blowing off Martin on the grid walk. And CVS turn 14. Couldn't be a better turn for more action.
He's not
Love
wrong.
that.
10-14. Which one was that? Was that the little chicane at the end?
Ooh, yeah, I think so.
Cool. Nice one. Next up is Inspector Seb.
Inspector Seb here. Today is a good day to be an Australian, both because Oscar Piastri is a gun and the race was actually a good time in Australia. Moment of the race was absolutely Hamilton running into the bollard. It just sent me. It was so good. It was like an angry child kicking the wall, but in an F1 car. Absolutely beautiful.
That's exactly what Ben said.
As if.
That's
You
so
two are the
funny.
same people, just on the other side of the world.
That is how it works.
We've all got a doppelganger on the other
Yep,
side.
And
of
we
the
found
planet.
Ben's.
Finally.
What a weird thing that would be.
Oh, Lord. Next up is Vegan Spiker.
For moment of the race, I think I'm going to go with the the fact that the cool-down room was actually the back of a Rolls Royce. I mean, how Vegas is that? Keep up the good work.
We'll try.
Cool down car.
Phantom.
Next one is username you can pronounce with their second entry. The first one we're not allowed to play.
Hello, Sam, Ben and Harry. First time submission for me. I'm another one from the West Country contingent. Thought I'd join in from Cider Country. My submission for moment of the race is me waiting the whole race for Crofty's Vegas puns, and then on the final lap, when he crosses the line, him coming out with the "What Verstappen's in Vegas stays in Vegas" classic line. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.
When you say
It might be the worst thing he's ever said.
I think it is.
Might be the worst thing anyone's ever said.
Maybe. We've said a lot of bad things on this podcast. I don't know if anything
Doesn't even touch that.
Goodness me.
Yeah, this weekend was painful to listen to. All Good Always is now next or just next?
Highly breaking moment of the race for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, other than the fact that I'm kind of glad that it's over, has got to be at the end when Max went on the radio on his cool down lap at the end and was like, "Viva Las Vegas." I mean, the guy's so relaxed now that he's already got the drivers and the constructors championship in the bag that, I mean, it's a pretty funny sight. Love you guys with the podcast. Bye.
I actually enjoyed that. Kind of rate that Max on that.
But also the after an entire weekend of just slagging off the whole event, and he starts singing "Viva Las Vegas."
Apparently, he's a big Elvis fan because he did a whole challenge on social media guessing Elvis lyrics as well. Apparently, he likes the Presley. He likes the King.
Oh well, sure. Next is Pietro della Rosberg. Do you think that's their real name? I hope
That's
it
a
is.
fantastic
No, it's
name.
Pietro Fittipaldi, Pedro de la Rosa, and Nico Rosberg
right,
all doing
in
a submission in one.
Oh, right,
That's
well.
the only logical explanation for this.
That's going to be a busy 17 seconds then.
Howdy, fellas. Well, first, I want to thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Oh, no.
My moment of the race is watching Alonso make it a classic Alonso start and pass everybody, and then just forget that there was a turn one. Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
Oh, no.
I enjoyed that a lot.
I'm going to use that a lot now.
Oh,
baby.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
Right. Anyway, Thirsty Platypus is next.
Thirsty here, boys. My moment of the race is Perez needing Max's help to get P2 with the most dominant car in history after having the best luck of safety cars I've ever seen in a race. And then getting P2 in the Drivers' Championship after being the worst performing driver of the year.
Oh,
unbelievable. I don't know how he keeps that seat next year. Thanks, boys.
He's won 2 races. Can we forget that?
That's more like everyone else but one.
I don't hold this against Verstappen at all because he had no need to actually do this. But when he came over the team radio and said, "I did everything I could to help," no, you did. You could have helped more if you wanted to. You didn't have to, but you can't say you did everything you could.
I tried. I liked the let's work together to get, and then just overtakes and runs off. Bye. See you later.
In front of you, Sergio. Let's work as a team. And by a team, I mean I'm winning.
There's no I in team except when I spell it. Real Dad, yes. Real Dad is next.
Good morning. This is the one only Real Dad with the one only James for giving our moment of the race. Started watching half an hour later, so the race is still on.
Oh.
But as of now, the moment of the race is...
Probably Leclerc absolutely not going for the pit stop under the safety car. I mean, it just completely messed up the strategy there, and then terrible race for him.
Free Leclerc and go back to bed, boys. Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.
We're trying.
Merch is available.
It is available still until he's free.
Until he's free.
Oh, Lord. Joromir? I'm sorry if I've said that terribly. Joromir. What are we saying?
Jorama.
Joromir. Joromir.
Like Jeremy, but wrong. Joromir.
Yeah, like Boromir.
All right.
From Lord of the Rings.
Okay, here we go.
What's up, boys? It's Yoromir with the A submitting from Chicago, and my moment of the race is Max Lannister sending his regards to the FIA stewards over the radio.
Yeah, sassy. The Nade God is this another new one?
Yes.
Well, they've thrown it in the Discord and then they've gone back to bed. So here we go.
What's up, late breakers? Love the pod. My driver of the day is Lance Stroll, aka Lance Stroll. What a great drive by him, from 19th to, I believe, 5th after the penalty for George Russell. Really quietly moved up the field there. No one was really talking about him. I think we all expect him to crash most days, but this was a great drive by Lance Stroll. So my hat's off to him. Also, Vegas, great job. This was a really good race. It's 2:45 where I am, and I am wide awake. Great job.
Oh, 2:45 anywhere is not a good time.
No good. We've also had one last one, In of the Death, unvetted from Penny 1532. What do we reckon? Give it a whirl.
Let's play it. Play it.
My moment of the race from Las Vegas has got to be Chuckles LeBuckles under the weight of that pole position again. Just can't make it stick, can he? Do you think if he ever gets on kind of pole position now, he just thinks, oh, well, that's not going to be another win for me? Question for you.
That's why he was so disappointed in qualifying.
I love that he just goes to question.
Question for you.
His own submission.
We are checking.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's ready to get hurt again every single time he puts it on pole.
We all are.
Well, he's only got to get hurt once more this season, and that's next week. And we'll be previewing and reviewing the episode.
Only
Sam.
one left.
No. Oh, my Lord. Just for caveat, we are here the entire winter break, but one race to go. So we will be back on the midweek for our preview. And then, of course, we'll be out here over the weekend for our quali review and race review of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Abu Dhabi, as we like to call it, at Yas Marina. So make sure you tune in, especially if it's your first time. It's still be good fun, even though it's the last one. Discord link is in the description. Patreon means you get all episodes ad-free and 2 extra every month. Top tier gets beer with breaking. You also get discount on merch and a birthday shout out, which we will be doing at some point in the next week, I promise. Late breaking F1 on all social media. Give us a follow. This is being video recorded with a camera, so you can see our faces on the Yub Tubs. Please subscribe. We really need the revenue, so we can do this full time, please. Thanks kindly. That's it from me. I had a lovely Vegas. I hope you're all sleeping well, and we will see you in the next one. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I have been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.
Viva Las Vegas!
What Verstappen's in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Oh, baby.
I had to get it in again. I'm stopping by.